we're rearming. We're retooling and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do, and that's exactly what we're doing right now during the ceasefire.
Motor vessel Majestic X, we intend to conduct the boarding of your vessel.
The Iranian regime is on the brink. The U.S.-led blockade is suffocating them to the point of no return, and the frenzy inside the regime has reached a breaking point. And it's not just Iran. China, which relied on Iranian oil, is begging. It's begging to stop this crazy, terrible blockade over Hormuz. They are feeling the squeeze like never before, and they're openly panicking, begging President Trump to open the Strait of Hormuz. We got IRGC generals openly staging what can only be described as an internal revolt against their own president. We got Xi Jinping going hat in hand as a literal beggar. And we got a hollowed out Iranian regime that's fracturing in real time, losing $500 million a day with oil wells approaching a point of no return. And here's the thing. Here's what the legacy media absolutely cannot bring their sorry little liberal selves to say. Every single one of these stories is a story about Donald Trump winning. Every single one. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I'm your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to, there it is, smack that bell and subscribe button. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments and questions. It would be my privilege and honor to read and answer them during our live stream. Also, before we dive in here, I want you to stop what you're doing and go right now to this website, turleytraining.com. It's all one word, turleytraining.com, because we're living through a time when a lot of people are beginning to realize something important. The old economic system, the one that told you to work harder, grind longer, and depend on institutions that frankly don't have your best interests in mind, is starting to break down. I mean, you see it everywhere. Inflation, instability, and just a growing sense that the system is increasingly designed for the benefit of a very small group at the top. And whenever we see moments like this historically, something interesting happens. Ordinary people begin looking for ways to create independence from the system rather than depend on it. And that's why I want to invite you to a free training with someone I know personally, a good friend of mine named Ryan. Ryan has been quietly building what he calls the perfect lifestyle business, and it takes advantage of the new hidden economy. And what's fascinating about it is that it's probably not what you think of when you hear like online business. In fact, when he first explained it to me, I'll be honest, it sounded a little weird, but then he showed me the results and I immediately got excited because it's working so well right now in 2026. The part that really caught my attention, it takes less than 30 minutes a day to actually run and operate. I kid you not, a half an hour. And the best part is it's so different from a lot of other online businesses out there because there's no advertising to run. There's no social media marketing to worry about, no employees to hire, no inventory to buy, no websites to build. You see why I was like, I don't know. Does this work? Yeah, it does. It's astonishing. You don't need any technical background to get started. And this hidden economy lifestyle business is something you can learn and apply in just a few hours a week. So I asked Ryan to break this down step by step for you. And he agreed. He agreed to host a free private training where you could see exactly how this works and be as blown away as I was, because this is about creating real independence in a time when more and more people are starting to question the system altogether. So if you want to see how this hidden economy works and decide if this is right strategy for you, go to that website, turleytraining.com, and reserve your spot right now. You already know the world's changing, and more people are stepping outside the system than ever, not by chance, but by choice. This is one of those opportunities to do exactly that. Learn more at turleytraining.com. Amazing stuff for sure. All right, let's dive right in here. I want to start where all serious analysis should start, and that's with the facts on the ground that provide the big picture of what's happening here in the Iran war. So here I'm basically doing the legacy media's job for them, since they're so infected with TDS, since their audience has dwindled to cosmopolitan white single women living alone with their cats. I need to do the job they refuse to do and give you the factual context of what's actually happening here. If there were a single word that could accurately summarize what U.S. forces have done to Iran in these last 6-7 weeks, that single word would be devastation. What has been done to the Iranian regime's military, economic, and strategic capability is, and I'm not exaggerating, absolutely historic. Let me give you what's basically a 13-point scorecard. And kudos to Mark Dubowitz of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies for assembling this scorecard for us. It's very, very good. Here are the facts of where we are right now. Number one, Iran's nuclear program has been basically obliterated. This is the number one goal of President Trump. We'll find out why later in this broadcast, but their enrichment and reprocessing has been completely gutted. Their weaponization sites have been destroyed. Fordo is inoperable. Natanz is in ruins. A generation of senior nuclear scientists have been assassinated. The crown jewel of the entire Islamic Republic's prestige project, their nuclear program, is for all practical purposes gone. Number two, their ballistic missile program is crippled. Monthly production down from 100 to near zero. Roughly half the regime's entire missile and launcher inventory destroyed. The IRGC Aerospace Force commander who ran the whole missile enterprise is dead. Iran was the leading non-state ballistic missile power in the world. Non-state meaning that they were amassing these ballistic missiles outside the great power frameworks recognized by the UN Security Council. Iran was the leading non-state ballistic missile power in the world. And the key here is was. What they were, past tense, the leading non-state ballistic missile power in the world. No more. Number three, their air defenses have been completely devastated. American and Israeli air power is now operating over Iranian skies with near impunity. There's no meaningful ability to contest American air dominance over Iranian territory. Four, full economic warfare. And we're talking full sanctions and a suffocating naval blockade and near zero oil exports and choked imports and wrecked steel and petrochemical sectors. And the result is triple-digit inflation, a currency that's effectively worthless, an economy on life support being completely starved of economic oxygen. Five, regime decapitation. Khamenei, dead. Larijani, dead. Hundreds of senior IRGC intelligence, military, and Basij commanders, dead, including the IRGC commander-in-chief, the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, and the Aerospace Force commander. Mojtaba Khamenei, if he's even alive, has inherited a hollowed-out regime with no supreme authority and a gutted command structure. 6, the entire region has turned on Tehran, okay? Every single Sunni Arab Gulf state, all of them, all the GCC states, have shut down the sanctions busting, money laundering, and financial escape routes that the regime relied on for years. No Arab capital is willing to throw Iran a lifeline. Even China and Russia, and particularly China, we're going to find that out in a moment. They're only providing limited support. And as we'll see in a moment, even that is now collapsing. 7, the Iranian proxy network has been shattered. Hezbollah and Hamas have been heavily degraded. The Houthi political leadership in Yemen is basically sitting on the sidelines. The entire axis of resistance, what's known as the messianic multipolarity, the famous ring of fire in that region, is now, they're just slogans than real threats. The 40-year architecture of Iranian regional power projection is gone. 8, the Syrian corridor is severed. This is huge. A lot of people don't realize this because the key role that President Assad played in Syria, Assad, when he was ruling in Syria, is that Syria was the land bridge for Iran to arm Hezbollah. But now Assad is gone. The new government in Damascus is aligned with Saudi Arabia and is now actively blocking Iranian arms transfers to Hezbollah, arresting smugglers, and publicly declaring Syria will no longer serve as a transit corridor for Tehran's terrorists. So the land bridge to the Mediterranean that took decades to build is effectively closed. 9, and this is huge, Lebanon is pivoting west. With Hezbollah battered and resupply choked, Israel and Lebanon have opened direct peace talks for the first time since 1983, aimed at a permanent agreement and Hezbollah's full disarmament. Beirut is now asserting that the Lebanese armed forces alone, apart from Hezbollah, are responsible for national defense. That's a direct repudiation of Hezbollah's entire resistance claim. 10, the Iranian deterrence doctrine has been exposed as a complete bluff. Okay, so the claim for decades was that if Israel ever struck Iran, and we heard this right at the beginning of some of these analysts, so-called analysts, Iran would rain tens of thousands of missiles on Tel Aviv and they would never survive. That threat is now laughable. Everything we heard from the podcast Panikins is now a farce. Provably so, demonstrably so. Iran has turned out to be nothing more than a paper tiger defanged by U.S. and Israeli forces. 11, the economy is hollowed out from within. Power shortages, a water crisis. Remember, 90% of their aquifers, their underground water sources, are gone. That was even before the first bomb drop. Factory shutdowns, pension unrest, mass protests. As you know, nationwide demonstrations erupted in December of last year over the economic freefall that was happening in Iran. The Bazaris, that's the merchant class. The Bazaris, the oil workers, the truckers, the regime's traditional support base, they joined the strikes across all 31 provinces. Iran is running out of oil storage space as we speak. Fuel shortages are spreading. This is the single worst economic crisis in the regime's 47-year history. 12, there's been a massive scientific and technical brain drain from Iran. Beyond the nuclear experts, Iran has lost a generation of irreplaceable expertise in missile design, centrifuge engineering, and weapons development. The survivors are harder to recruit and easier to deter. That human capital cannot be rebuilt quickly. And then finally, 13, their naval power, of course, has been totally decimated. The regular Navy is gone. The IRGC Navy has basically been eviscerated. Those are the words of Marco Rubio. Literally eviscerated. Hundreds of their ships are at the bottom of the sea, which has allowed U.S. forces to expand the blockade unimpeded. The maritime arm of Iranian power projection has been completely neutralized. Now, here's what's so extraordinary about all 13 of these points combined. The regime was forced to play its Hormuz card, its supposed ace in the hole, at its weakest possible moment. I mean, seriously, though, Think about what it would have meant if Iran had been allowed to run out the clock and reach nuclear-armed ICBM status with 10,000 ballistic missiles, Chinese and Russian-built military, hundreds of thousands of attack drones, a fully operational terror network, and hundreds of billions of dollars to harden its economy. That is what we would have been facing at the Strait of Hormuz. That is what Trump prevented. The strategic picture here is simply extraordinary. Now, there's more that remains to be done. And again, we can continue to go up the escalation ladder here. But what has already been achieved is almost incomprehensible in scale. And it was done in a matter of weeks. So with that picture in mind, where does the regime, or what's left of it, go from here? Analysts are arguing that Iran really only has three options. Option one, surrender. Okay, basically. I mean, so this is where parliamentary elected officials, reformists, negotiators, this is where they would capitulate. Now, they obviously wouldn't say, we surrender. They would try to find some way of spinning it, but they would agree to all of Trump's demands. They would agree to international inspections, the surrender of enriched uranium, and the complete dismantlement of the missile and drone program. So this is what the parliament speaker, Galibaf, and their foreign minister, Arakchi, are effectively pushing for, more or less. They won't admit it, but that's really what they're doing. And President Pezeshkian is pleading for, more or less, when he said, I'll bring it up a little bit later on, but where he said, if we don't do this, Iran's economy is going to collapse and people are going to be starving, and there's going to be nothing. The IRGC is not going to have any money for anything at that point. So that's option number one. Option two, the IRGC under General Vahidi can continue what they're already doing, and that is openly confronting U.S. forces, sending PT boats and drones to harass tankers, conducting pinprick attacks, try to raise the cost of the blockade, hoping to generate enough economic and political turbulence to damage Trump before the midterms. Option three, and this is the one the regime has relied on for 47 years, is delay, 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 barter, stall, run out the clock. It's often referred to as the Persian rug merchant technique. The traditional Persian rug merchants never intend to close a deal because the negotiations are the deal, as it were. And the logic is simply string out negotiations through, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, reach the midterms, hope the Democrats take the House and the Senate. That'll force Trump to back off. And then hopefully in 2028, you can get a friendlier administration to restore the arrangement under Obama-like terms. Here's the problem. All three options are losing options for Iran. Every one of them. There's no good option. Option one, surrender, means the effective end of the regime as a revolutionary theopolitical project. And the key there is that surrendering would effectively destroy the regime, precisely because the regime has built its legitimation on a theology of confrontation. So the regime has been ordained by God to destroy Israel and humiliate the great Satan. But when the great Satan and Israel have destroyed and humiliated the regime, you see, it loses the last shred of its own credibility, which is why Vahidi, the current general, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, would sooner burn Tehran to the ground than accept it. Option two, the continued confrontation against U.S. forces, PT boat harassment, and so forth. All that does is trigger escalating American retaliation with the entire weight of CENTCOM behind it. So they can't win there. And then option three, running out the clock, is economic suicide because of the strangulating blockade. Iran is hemorrhaging money to the tune of nearly $500 million a day. We're not. We don't need their oil. We don't need their gas. We don't need their petrochemicals. It costs them $500 million a day and counting. Our oil exports have doubled since this conflict began. They don't have 6 months. They're starving. We're eating better than ever. They don't have 6 months. They barely have 6 weeks. They're literally running out of economic oxygen. So Trump has done something remarkable here. He's engineered a situation where the regime cannot fight, it can't negotiate honestly, and it can't survive waiting. All the while, our energy sector profits to the tune of 2x its normal exports as long as this continues. I mean, that's not luck. That's strategic genius. And it's causing an all-out civil war inside the regime. They're all turning on each other as the economic resources and political options become more and more scarce. So here's the headline, right? We just read this days ago. Weeks ago, the man who was supposed to be running Iran is in a coma. Not metaphorically, not politically, literally. Okay, Mojtaba Khamenei, appointed as Iran's third supreme leader just weeks ago, meant to provide stability after his father's death, is reportedly lying in intensive care in a Tehran hospital, unaware of his own appointment, unaware of the crisis consuming his country, unaware of the regime he was chosen to lead, and how it's tearing itself apart in the corridors above him. So there's a power vacuum. When all's said and done, there's a power vacuum. And in the vacuum, his absence has created something extraordinary has begun, something that has stunned even Washington. Iran's own president, Pezeshkian, publicly demanded that Hormuz be reopened. His own foreign minister, IRGC, announced the strait was open to all commercial vessels. This was exactly a week ago today. And on that same day that the announcement was made, the IRGC opened fire on tankers. The same regime, the same day, two completely opposite orders. And state television, Iran's own state television, called the foreign minister stupid on air. He should never have said that. We're not opening up Hormuz. So what's happening inside Iran right now is not a government in crisis. It's a government that ceased to function as a single entity. I mean, it's basically broken up into multiple factions. You've got the IRGC. You got the mullahs. You got the elected officials, the Iranian parliament. And then you also have the regular army, the conscripted army, what's known as the Artesh. And they're more with the people, interestingly enough. There's a real divide between the IRGC, whose generals become billionaires, and then just kind of the grunt soldiers of the Artesh. And the IRGC is really there to protect the regime, but now they are the regime, right? And right now it does look like it's the IRGC generals who have revolted against the parliamentary figures who've been in charge of negotiations with the U.S. delegation led by J.D. Vance. So that means that this fellow, Ahmad Vahidi, is most likely the one who is really in charge. He's the IRGC commander-in-chief. And here's the critical thing you got to understand about Vahidi. For him, this is not ideology. It's not, or maybe I should say, it's not just ideology. It's institutional self-preservation. The IRGC's budget, its power, its political influence, its entire claim to relevance, all of it depends on the existence of external enemies in active conflict. So for Vahidi, peace is not an option. Peace is actually an existential threat to everything he commands. So it ain't going to work out very well for them. Let's just put it that way, because now we just go up the escalation ladder. And then you have the parliament speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf. And he's the head of the Islamabad negotiation delegation. Apparently, he just resigned. We're getting word for that. We'll have to confirm that. But he apparently has reached the opposite conclusion. He's recognizing that the economic reality is unsurvivable, Iran is absorbing hundreds of billions of dollars in war damage. The currency is at its lowest point in history. Infrastructure has been shattered. Storage tanks are full. Oil wells are approaching forced shutdown. Ghalibaf is not a reformist. Let's be clear about that. But he is a regime survivor, calculating that the only path to regime survival runs through negotiation, economic relief before there's nothing left to save. Then there's Foreign Minister IRGC. You'll see him a lot on television. His English is very good and all that good stuff, but he's also in the negotiating camp. He's the one who publicly announced Hormuz was open last Friday and got shot down by the IRGC. And then finally, there's President Pezeshkian. He's the reformist president elected on a platform of economic relief. He's openly arguing that if this war does not come to an end, Iran's economy is going to completely collapse. So those are some of the key figures here, and they don't represent a single coherent government. That's important to get. They don't represent a single they're rather representative of they're patchworks of factions that are increasingly at odds with one another. And I would argue this is because no matter which one of those three options Iran has left, surrender, continued hostilities, or simply trying to wait Trump out, no matter which option they take, it all leads to the same conclusion, the end of the regime. There's literally no way around that. This is death throes stuff going on right now. And to make matters even worse, their one remaining ally, their chief financier, who's been artificially propping up this regime for the last decade, is betraying them as we speak in the worst way possible. Wait until you see this. But first, if you are just joining us, our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments and questions. I'll be happy to answer them on this live stream right here, right now. Also, did you know that U.S. life expectancy peaked at 78 years back in 2014? And global life expectancy is declining for the first time in 30 years because people are aging faster than ever before. And this is largely due to more toxins in the air, chemicals in our soil and food, and other external factors that are new to us. Now, what most people don't know is that we can actually fight aging on a cellular level. Scientists have discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells, helping to protect them and delay aging. The power of nature can outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without the nasty side effects. And now you can get all the benefits of kimchi in a simple capsule with Kimchi One. I take Kimchi One every single day. I absolutely love it. Just had it about an hour ago, and look at me, I'm ready to go and rock and roll, right? Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains plus antioxidants and enzymes that support your digestion, metabolism, and skin health from the inside out. As we age, we become more susceptible to microbial threats, harmful viruses and bacteria. But the beauty is that Kimchi One is a natural antimicrobial, helping your body fight off harmful bacteria, viruses, and even toxins while boosting immunity and energy. And best of all, Kimchi One, it's 100% made right here in America. It's all natural and non-GMO. So do what I do. Support your gut, protect your cells, and feel younger each and every day with Kimchi One from Brightcore. I absolutely love it. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below. Just use code TURLEY for 25% off your entire order. Or for an even better deal, give my friends at Brightcore a call, and you're going to get up to 50% off your order plus free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. All right. So China is starting to cave here. This might be the single most diplomatically stunning development in this entire crisis because the pressure now on the Iranian regime is coming not just from Washington and Tel Aviv, it's now coming from Beijing itself. Now, obviously, Xi Jinping is not known for begging. In fact, it's usually the other way around, right? Other countries beg China since so much of the world's nations have become effectively vassal states to China. However, this week, Xi Jinping effectively begged, and he didn't even pick up the phone and call Trump. He can't do that. I'll tell you that why in a second. He called someone else for this particular favor. He called in a favor to Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. The Chinese Foreign Ministry released an official readout just a few hours after the call, and the Chinese government is basically calling for the Strait of Hormuz to be fully opened for normal passage for, and this is the key, all vessels, not just the one Iran allows. And of course, not just the ones the United States allows, which is everyone else except Iran and those doing business with Iran, which China desperately wants to do. The whole strait should be open, completely unimpeded. Now, why is that significant? Well, because for weeks we were told, especially by our own lying legacy media, that China was inevitably going to defend Iran. This war was illegal. It was unethical. It was unjustifiable. It was disgusting and evil. And because China got 12% of its oil from Iran, it would inevitably take measures to support Iran. But now, with China calling for the entire strait to be open regardless of Iran's demands, China's telling the entire region that its priority is the waterway, not the Islamic Republic. Its priority is Hormuz, not Iran. That Beijing's energy security, its yuan trade strategy, its Gulf commercial relationships, all of it requires a functioning Hormuz regardless of what Tehran's internal factions decide. And China's willing to publicly align with Gulf states over Iran to make that priority clear, hence his call to Mohammed bin Salman. Iran has just been betrayed by its last ally. You see, here's the Chinese dilemma that Trump always knew. Again, it's all about leverage, and Trump always knew he had leverage over China. 40% of China's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. Not just Iranian oil, all the Gulf oil, Saudi, Emirati, Kuwaiti. And right now, Beijing is basically getting squeezed from both sides of its own supply. Iran's supplies are gone, and the free flow of 40% of their oil has been radically disrupted by the U.S.-led blockade. And so what Xi's call to Mohammed bin Salman signals is seismic. They're basically turning their backs on Iran. And here's this deeper strategic read on that call. Xi didn't call Trump because calling Trump would be what? What would it be? It'd be an admission of defeat. Okay, you own the strait. You own Hormuz. Please open it up. Please, pretty please. It would be a direct concession to American leverage. So instead, Xi called MBS. And he called MBS because Mohammed bin Salman, because MBS is the central figure in the Abraham Accords orbit. Now, Saudi Arabia is not a formal member of those accords, but MBS is, inside the Gulf, the closest partner that Trump has. And so when Xi needed to signal a change of position without picking up the phone and calling the White House, he called the next best thing. He called the one man in the region who would carry the message with a lot of weight directly to Washington. Trump and Mohammed bin Salman are very, very close. So what does that tell us? This is very, very important. What does that tell us? It doesn't just tell us that China is crying uncle. It tells us that the Abraham Accords network, the coalition of Israel and Gulf Arab states that Trump has been building since his first term, the coalition of the Abraham Accords has become so powerful, so central to the architecture of the new Middle East order, that even Beijing has to route its diplomatic messages through that network. This is absolutely extraordinary stuff. This is the world reorienting itself around a Trump-built civilizational coalition. So let's zoom all the way out here, because when you look at everything we've covered today, a singular, breathtaking, grand strategy comes into focus. And I want you to see it clearly, because this is the thing the legacy media is never going to explain to you, because they're constitutionally incapable of crediting Trump with any kind of victory, any kind of strategic vision. So here it is. Trump is achieving two massive civilization-level goals with a single grand strategy. Trump is achieving two massive civilizational goals with a single grand strategy. So this is what you have to get. If you want to fundamentally understand what Trump's refrain of Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, right? He says it over and over again. This is all about Trump getting a nuclear weapon. You have to understand what that really means. The nuclear weapon is a symbol for Trump. You have to understand that it's a symbol for these two massive goals that he's accomplishing with a single grand strategy. Goal number one, a new Middle Eastern order governed by Israeli muscle and Arab money. The Abraham Accords security architecture, right? That's what the Abraham Accords are all about. They're not a diplomatic photo op. They are a real architectural blueprint for an entirely new regional security order. An order where Israel, the military and technological anchor, Israel's the military and technological anchor, and the Gulf Arab states are the economic engine, and the United States is the guarantor power, but no longer the policeman footing the entire bill. That's what Trump wants to do. Ultimately, the irony in all of this, will have people, he promised no more wars. He promised. The irony in all of this is he wants to get American troops out of the Middle East once and for all. But I'm getting ahead of myself, I would say, but without China ruling the place. That was the only option. We pull out, China comes in. But if we pull out with the Abraham Accords in place, with Israeli muscle and Arab money, you have a vision of peace and prosperity governed by regional powers in their own civilizational sphere that are pro-U.S. and that are linked up with U.S. energy and so forth. So under this vision, Iran getting a nuke would be far more than them just getting a weapon. Iran getting a nuke was a symbol. It was a symbol of a Middle East forever dominated and held hostage by the Islamic Republic and its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Iran with a nuclear weapon meant no Abraham Accords regional security. It meant every Gulf state, every Arab government would be forced into either submission to Tehran or perpetual dependence on American protection from Tehran. The nuclear program was the Iranian veto over the entire new Middle Eastern order. That's what you have to get. Goal two, boxing China out of any major influence in the region. So think about who was financing Iran to get that nuclear weapon. It was China. China was purchasing 80 to 90% of Iranian oil. China signed a 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership with Tehran, promising hundreds of billions of dollars in investment. China was providing Iran with advanced technology, economic lifelines, and diplomatic cover at the UN. And in exchange, Iran was functionally China's de facto proxy in the world's most strategically critical waterway, the Strait of Hormuz. And whoever controls the regime that controls the Strait of Hormuz controls the on-off switch for 20% of global oil supply. For China, funding Iran was not charity, it was the purchase of a choke point. Through Iran, Beijing held de facto leverage over the global energy system. Through Iran, Beijing had a veto card over any American or Israeli-led order in the Middle East. Now watch how these two goals. Oh, and if Iran achieved a nuclear weapon, that de facto monopoly over the Strait of Hormuz by Beijing would be permanent. It would never change. Now watch how these two goals converge into one perfect interlocking strategy. By eliminating the Iranian regime as a functional military and strategic actor, Trump simultaneously eliminates the last impediment to an Abraham Accords regional security architecture and eliminates China's de facto control over Hormuz. I'll say that again. By eliminating the Iranian regime as a functional military and strategic actor, Trump simultaneously eliminates the last impediment to an Abraham Accords regional security architecture and eliminates China's de facto control over Hormuz. One campaign, two civilizational checkmates. That's the grand strategy that's playing out here. And the beauty of the engineering is this. Trump didn't just militarily defeat Iran. He structured the conflict in such a way that the Abraham Accords partners, Israel and the Gulf Arab states, are now directly invested in the post-Iran order. Saudi Arabia is expanding its Red Sea pipeline. The UAE is expanding Gulf of Oman pipelines to bypass the strait entirely. There are serious proposals for a pipeline across Jordan to Haifa, connecting Gulf oil to the Mediterranean. The entire Persian Gulf energy infrastructure is being re-engineered around an Abraham Accords-aligned architecture, one that is structurally independent of Iranian leverage and one that links back to American energy and American oil exports that have doubled since the war began. It's all about recalibrating a civilizationalist world order around America at its center. That is the grand strategy. That's what the legacy media cannot explain to you and will not explain to you because they are structurally committed to portraying everything Trump does as chaos. But it is not chaos. It is architecture. It is civilizational architecture being built in real time by Donald J. Trump, the grand master builder. Over to you as Josh, our moderator, puts together your question. Remember, our super chats are live, so if you have questions, it'll be my honor and my privilege to read them here and now and answer them, of course. Also, let's face it, you had a number in your head, right? The number you thought would be enough to retire, and then the price of life went up and up and up. And now the question isn't whether you saved, it's whether what you save can still even remotely buy the retirement you plan for. So think about what's happening right now. You got war, you got oil spiking, and then everything gets higher, right? Gas, groceries, insurance bills. We've seen this before. We're watching a structural shift in the global economy where inflation isn't temporary, it's embedded. And historically, when that happens, purchasing power doesn't recover, it erodes. Your dollar buys less, your savings carry less, and people who are counting down to retirement, they start wondering if they have to push it back, all because the cost of living moved the finish line. So that was my wake-up call. I knew there had to be something else I could do to protect what I built. So I researched, and that's when I found Augusta Precious Metals. And gang, they taught me things, I didn't even know they were possible. I had no idea you could move your IRA or 401k into physical gold, tax-free, penalty-free, a real asset that's held its value through war, oil spikes, and market chaos. And that changed everything for me. I've spoken with Augusta's education team. These guys know their stuff, and they explain it clearly. So here's what I recommend you do right now. Go to turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052 to get Augusta's free gold IRA guide. That's turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052 because The retirement you dreamed of is still possible, but only if you protect it. Click on that link below right now. All right, Josh, what do we got? What do we got? Excited to see what everyone got to say. Savage Helios 1. Do you think President Trump could unclassify some patents to bring gas prices down? That would be very, very interesting. Unclassified patents. I don't know the answer to that. My only concern with that is, as you know, oil prices are global. They're priced globally. They're not priced domestically. And so when you get into the oil business, you're getting into a business where you can make money regardless of what's happening in your own country. It's a hedge to domestic instability, whatever it is. But there's also the inverse to that as well. Things could be going great in your country and oil prices are still high. But what Trump has done in terms of opening up the Gulf of America and the WTI oil fields and I think even release some of the reserves is that he's just, again, it's a matter of supply and demand. He's just opening up more supply. And that's what you're asking for, whether we can do that. But it has limited effect. Bottom line, in the end, there has to be incredible stability. Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that you're seeing the East-West pipeline going through the Red Sea of Saudi Arabia, or the Strait of Hormuz pipeline that the UAE has put together. Those are very important because you have to have a bit of a redundancy contingency to bypass Hormuz. I think it'll be open and it'll be fully functional. We're not gonna have any issues after we take down this toothless tiger, as it were. But until then, as long as the supply routes are interrupted, at the very least, it takes longer for the oil to get to its destination, and then that's going to raise the price because the demand outweighs the supply. So it's a good question. I don't know the answer specifically, but whatever it is, it would have to alleviate the tension on supply in relation to demand. MAGA 24-hour Dr. Steve, while passing the SAVE Act, or essentially doing so in the Senate, is a great step towards voter integrity. It seems like the game changer would be to repeal the VRA and subsequent elimination of those Democrat districts. Will the Supreme Court be making a decision in time to alter the 2026 midterms? I believe so, MAGA 24. I believe so. I hear some of the liberals. I don't know how they're doing it, but again, I got it on X, so you got to take it with a grain of salt because there's plenty of doomers on there and panic and pessimists. But I heard that the three liberals were sort of slow rolling it out to make it harder for the midterms. But Sam Alito apparently is, as we speak, writing the majority decision, which means that they're going to strike it down. So, yeah, I think it will. It'll be huge. It'll give us an extra 12 seats. That may be all that we need to hold the majority for a long, long time. If Virginia's referendum goes down in flames, like it should, because it's blatantly unconstitutional, given requirements to change their constitution. If it goes down in the Virginia Supreme Court, which Cuccinelli believes will, their former attorney general thinks it will. He thinks, I think it's actually even dominated, their Supreme Court's dominated by Republicans, not necessarily Trump MAGA Republicans, but I think that they're ones who tend to, they abide by rule of law, and they'll see how this is an absolutely travesty when it comes to their when it comes to just violating their constitution. If that's gone, and then those four pickup of 4 for the Democrats, and then it looks like DeSantis is leaning towards a pickup of 4 in Florida, and then we get the other 12. That's going to be pretty impressive. That's going to put us up around 230 or so, 235. And then when we have the 2030 census kick in, I would love to see mid-decade a new census because of how corrupt the 2021 was. But when you have a 2030 census kick in, it's baked in the cake even now, just based on the numbers now. I don't think there's anything they can do. That's going to yield us another 12 seats, red states, another 12. So we're talking up to words of 250 seats. All you need is 218. So, and again, just the way districts have been so gerrymandered, the redistricting, I mean, for right or for wrong, there's only a few contested seats. So we may be looking at a permanent majority in the not so long future, as it were. Franz, Dr. Steve, it seems the shenanigans carried out by the SPLC look to have some ponerology undertones, or am I seeing things? Oh, Franz, I love it. Look at you. Let's see. So what he is referring to there is the theory of the Polish psychologist Andrzej Lobachevsky and his study of ponerology, where he concluded after 40 years of studying leftists, particularly European leftists, that they were all psychopaths, most particularly their leadership. And psychopaths, they get a thrill out of intentionally harming others. And I think you're right. I mean, it wasn't just simply, so interesting you make that connection there, Franz. It's not simply that they were just trying to keep the money rolling in. That's how most people are interpreting the funding of the KKK, the funding of the Unite the Right in Charlottesville, the funding of neo-Nazi program. Well, I don't want to drop names, but a lot of people are asking questions about who's been getting checks of influencers out there from, ironically, SPLC. It's not just a matter of, well, if we solved white supremacy, then we don't have a job anymore. So we got to keep white supremacy going so that we have a job. Remember, the other side of it was that the SPLC was getting a lot of money by taking out political opponents, by tar and feathering them as racists and bigots and all kinds of phobes, white supremacists and the like. So pumping money into these organizations that they can then associate with major figures in the political right, or like what they tried to do with Elon. They've tried to do it with Elon a number of times. That's good for business. So that's how most people are looking. That's certainly how I interpreted it. But what Franz is saying is it's not just good for I mean, it's just, that's what liberals do. That's what color revolutions do. They get a thrill out of manipulating people and seeing that manipulation result in harm, particularly physical harm, psychological harm. They love getting these psychopaths, I don't want to be mean, but we tend to see these like white women in Minneapolis going nuts, going insane, going crazy. They enjoy whipping that up. Like you see Tim Walz, he can't go on to an interview without trying to whip people out. Ilhan Omar, AOC, they're always trying to whip people up into a frenzy. And that's part of the psychopathy of not just manipulating others, but also doing harm to them through that manipulation. And so, yeah, I think there's some and if you don't know, ponerology comes from the Greek word poneros, which means evil. So it's the study of evil, and that's how Lobachevsky saw the left. So, yeah, I'd have to think it through and make some of the connections. I want to get some more tangible ones, but I think you're really on to something, Franz. That's cool. Carter, oh, Bruhu, cries the Islamic regime. The REGC is revolting. What are we to do? Give up? Yeah, that's, they're, The IRGC is falling apart. The BEGS are falling apart. The Artesh are falling apart. Well, Artesh, I don't even know if they're showing up for anything at this point. And even just the elected leaders are, half the time we're hearing they're under house arrest. The other half of the time they're out there saying, no, we want peace. The other half of the time they're being told, shut up. I mean, it's a mess. I mean, it's a bunch of different, and the mullahs, notice how the mullahs have been sidelined. Have you noticed that? When's the last time you heard an authoritative mullah speak in all of this? Because as I understand, you have basically the four factions, right? You have the IRGC, you have the mullahs, you have the elected parliamentarian officials, and you have the Artesh. That's the civilian army. And they hate, by the way, the IRGC. The IRGC are the pretty boys. Generals are billionaires, right? Soleimani was a billionaire. We found out that his daughter, just some niece or some person of the family was living a Kardashian lifestyle here in the United States before she got deported. But and no one in the Artesh lives like that. So the Artesh are the grunt soldiers, and they're treated as such. They're treated as the bottom of the totem pole, as it were. So they don't have. There's no love lost with the IRGC. The IRGC is there to protect the regime. The Artesh is there to protect the people from a foreign invader. So the Artesh are the most likely to side with the people. That's what you want to kind of keep an eye on, see what happens there. But yeah, you'll notice that the mullah faction's been basically sidelined. There's really nothing going on there, which is very, very fascinating, because then how does a regime that's built its legitimacy through Shiite theology of resistance against the great Satan, I mean, without the interpreters of that theology? It's fascinating stuff. Brian, my good friend, everyone seems to see the VRA decision is done, and the recent leak looks the same as what happened before Roe and finally overturned. But there are reports that the leftist justices, look at you. You and I read the same thing, are slow walking the Minority Report in order to prevent the redistricting from happening for the midterms. What have you heard? What's your take? Is that a successful strategy for the Dems to win the midterms and consequently dismantle any of MAGA's progress? Well, again, I disagree with you on that, Brian. I don't think there's much they can do with MAGA, because MAGA is so come on, Brian, there's not even that much the Republican Congress is doing. They did the BBB, and that's set for 2029 in terms of all the funding. But there's just MAGA is an EO driven, Article 2 driven, executive power driven movement. It's not a congressional movement. So I don't think there's just not a lot that they can do. Whatever they want to do, Trump can veto. But that said, yes, I heard the same thing, that they're slow walking it. But I don't know how they would do that. Is it turning in their dissenting opinions and they're just being late with it? I don't know what they're doing. But I heard, don't worry, it's going to be there by June. And as long as you get there by June and you get very fast redistricting put in place in most, maybe not all districts, but in a lot, we should be good to go. So we'll see. We'll see as it goes along. But yeah, the difference, I think, between you and me here is I think you're putting a lot of stock in the midterms where I'm not. I don't see the midterms as having that much of an effect. 94 did not affect 96. Clinton had a great presidency even with the Republican Congress. You can make the argument that Gingrich helped him in that, and that he pivoted right in a lot. But 94 didn't affect 96. 2010 didn't affect 2012. And even in 2014, the one thing with 2014 is they got the Senate. Now, if they get the Senate, yeah, we don't know, kiss goodbye putting any more judges on the bench. Yeah, I'm with you. But there's very, very few right now legitimate analysis. Like across the board, multiple analyses. Very few Democrats are saying they're going to be at the Senate. It's the House. And even Reagan had to deal with the House. And again, 86, the House he lost seats. It was still Democrat, but he lost seats in 86. a Tip O'Neill period. And, George Herbert Walker Bush ran away with it in 88 with over 400 electoral votes. So it's not just because they get Article 1 power doesn't, because Congress is so dysfunctional, there's not a lot they can do to Article 2. So I wouldn't be freaked out about the midterms. I wouldn't worry about it too much. That's my opinion. And then a year from now, you could look at me and say, see, I told you. Back at 24 Hour, how soon before we hear President Trump mentioning you in a oh gosh, I don't know. That'd be great. He'll probably get me mixed up with Jonathan Turley. That's happened a couple of times. Oh, Jonathan Turley was on YouTube saying, and everyone would be like, oh, Jonathan Turley, that was a great point. Thanks, back at 24 Hour. Benton, there is only route for supply from China still open, probably only one route. The Trans-China Iranian Railway, right, which terminates the Caspian Sea. That's right. China can rearm Iran via rail. Is bombing the railway on the table or off the table? Fully on the table. That's part of the escalation. It's full. Again, what Trump is doing here is he's just squeezing. This is a boa constrictor squeeze. He's just squeezing and squeezing internally with the internal unrest in the Civil War, and externally with the blockade. And he's just waiting to see what Iran does. That's it. He doesn't have to. He said it the other day in the press conference. I don't have to do a thing. Somebody asked him, are you going to drop nuclear weapons? He was very offended by that. Because again, it's the insinuation that he's not all there and that he's a crackpot and so forth. And he's just like, what are you talking about? I don't have to do anything. We're making so much money off of this. our oil exports, energy exports have 2x'd over the last 6-7 weeks. China is now buying $10 billion worth of American energy. So West Texas oil is through the roof. I mean, we're just having our workers are doing great. How are they doing? So that's he's just like, I don't have to do anything. But yes, part of the escalation ladder, definitely they can move in that direction. Savage. U.S. technology that's shown to the world is 30 years old. I know because I knew about the railgun in the early 90s because stepdad worked at Lockheed before the big layups. UAP is, do we have something else? So I've heard the same thing too. I've heard that this has been some technology that they've been holding back on for a little time. And this is the first time, even with the directed energy anti-aircraft weaponry, i.e. lasers. The laser technology has been around. What's new, as I'm understanding, what's very, very new is the AI. The AI is pretty new right now. The AI, the satellite technology that we've been using, Space Force is relatively new in the way it's able to garner all of our astrosphere technology. He who controls the high ground controls the theater, as it were. And we have the high ground at literally, 20,000 miles up or 10, or no, it's 1,000 miles up. It's low orbit. So, Kevin, what's happening with Kurdish, Baloch, Azeri, Arab, and Persian rebels in Iran or the regular army against the IRGC? Will Israel or U.S. help them? That's a good question. I've been keeping my eye on the Azeri forces from the very beginning because there were rumors that they were assembling. Azerbaijan is very close to Israel, very close to the Sunni world, even though they're Shiite, Sunni Arab nations. And I've been keeping my eye on the Kurds, but I have not seen any movement of late. So what I'm getting, I think, so what it was now is it was propaganda, right? Truth is the first casualty in war, to get the Iranians to freak out and scatter their forces and go to their frontier or go to their borders to try to protect from a possible invasion coming either from Azerbaijan or Iraqi Kurds. So that obviously was there throw them off, throw the Iranian forces off. But it's a very good question. Of course, I think Israel and U.S. would help if either Kurds or Azeri got involved. Persian rebels, absolutely. Arab rebel, UAE is already talking, if that's who you're talking about, or Saudi Arabia. They both said they would enter the fight if it resumed, and if they were attacked again, or at least they reserved the right to enter at this point for retaliation, given all the attacks. That was the biggest blunder. That was the biggest mistake, I think, looking back, of Iran in the end, was sending those missiles. More missiles were sent to the UAE, as I understand it, to the UAE than to Israel. They really thought that the people would see that as a sort of a signal to rise up. The Arab streets, as they're called, and in mass flood the streets in Cairo and in Jordan and Syria, and demand that their leaders be true Muslims and stand up against this great Satan and little Satan. And it never happened. It just never happened. The Arab streets despise Iran, and they want to Dubai their region. They like the idea of turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. They like the idea of aligning with Israel might and their Arab muscle. Israel muscle and Arab money, and then bringing peace and stability to the region. And they see Iran as dead set against that, and that as long as the regime remains, they will continue to be a factor of instability, of poverty, of death, destruction, instability, and no one benefits from that except the regime, because that's the currency they operate with. So those individual groups, I don't know as much about the Baloch, but the Kurds, the Azeris, Arabs, Persian rebels, definitely they would all be invited if the escalation ladder went those steps. But it does look like the threat of Azeri forces from Azerbaijan coming in, and Kurdish forces, does look like that was a bit of propaganda to throw Iranian forces off. William, Dr. Turley, good AM. Your thoughts? California governorship is going to be the bellwether election that will really determine whether this nation is going forward in a true MAGA ideology, or will continue to be mired in a socialistic claptrap. I would ask you what data are you or what model are you drawing from to think that California is still a bellwether for the country? It was in the 80s and the 90s for sure. 60s, 70s, 80s. So Reagan was governor there 2 terms. Nixon was governor there. Pete Wilson, Schwarzenegger. There's, it had its share of red state, era. It had its red state era there, but it just seems it has so imploded in terms of it's gone so extreme to the left in a way that the vast majority of the country has not. The vast majority of the country has gone red. California was a bellwether when it was growing in population. Once it started losing and hemorrhaging population, it stopped being a bellwether. Same with New York, same with, Chicago. They used to be bellwethers because they were seats of power, economic power, political power in the country. But they're just losing that to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, Oklahoma. The planned tallest building in the country. What is it? 1,000? How tall is it? Because it was connected to a date. It might be even 1903, 1,903 feet tall. The tallest the tallest planned building right now would be in Oklahoma City. It's not going to be in California. It's not going to be in New York. It's not going to be in Philly. So the country is moving in a different direction, and it's getting redder and redder and redder. And you're just seeing that with the electoral college votes that are being lost by California, New York, Illinois. Collectively, they're all going to be losing 12 or so by 2030. And then red states are gaining the same number, 12. Same with congressional seats. Red states are gaining 12 congressional seats. Blue states losing them. So I just don't see them as a bellwether anymore. I really don't. So to me, it really doesn't matter what California does. I kind of look at their gubernatorial race with kind of, it's sort of like it's a bit of a, it's almost like a grudge match where you've got 5 or 6 really ugly, horrible, sweaty losers in the ring with 2 really, solid, clean, strong heroes. But everybody knows the thing's been rigged to get rid of the heroes, So I'm watching. But stunningly, the heroes keep coming out on top. So I'm watching there with the fascination. But in the end, I mean, it's just I just saw some clips from the gubernatorial debate, and I mean, they're just living in another world. They're just what was that creepy lady? She just said she gives Gavin Newsom a B when it comes to homelessness. Dealing with the problem of homelessness. Homelessness went up under Gavin Newsom. Homelessness went up only in a liberal brain. Now, Rush used to say it's never results, it's always intentions. But only in a liberal brain can a problem have gotten worse, but yet you're going to get a passing grade for it. So anyway, I don't put a lot of stock on California as being a bellwether for the country. Rock dog, oh great and learned Dr. Steve. I can't help to think about the spiritual aspect of epic fury. The regime in Iran is the definition of evil. Christians, Jews, and Muslims are joining the U.S. to crush them. All of this is around the Easter season. I can't help to think about divine intervention. Your thoughts? Yeah, and I think we bombed them on the first day of Ramadan or something like that as well. So, I think. I mean, I'm going to think more in, again, my scholarship is just that. It's very, very much rooted in studies. So, I don't get speculative here, which could be cool. I mean, you could go there. I'm just not the best person for that. This is theopolitics on steroids. And in the world of theopolitics, religion is front and center in all matters of public life. So you've got the Shiite theocracy. They are theopolitical to the core. Their whole legitimating narrative is that they've been ordained by God, by Allah, to destroy Israel and to humiliate the great Satan. And then they have an entire proxy network in the region, or did, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, and you could call that messianic multipolarity that's shared in that vision, and forced the politics in their respective countries, Yemen, Lebanon, Israel, to move, in Gaza, obviously, to move in the direction of Iran as over and against the Knesset in Israel and DC and the West in general. And then what's fighting them? It's the Abraham Accords. It's Christian, Jewish, and Muslim alliance around a shared patriarchal identity of Abraham. And within that alliance, they are effectively theocracies, constitutional theocracies. Saudi Arabia is a theocracy. Some would argue Israel is a de facto theocracy, a soft theocracy. It doesn't have a constitution, but it does have a court. So constitutional theocracies are sort of modern, or in the sense that you have a religion that overtly must shape all legislation, but that once the legislation is shaped, a secular court comes in and determines whether or not it violates, human rights or autonomy or whatever, whatever kind of protective laws they want to, or protective guardrails for not allowing the religion to go too far. So it's known as constitutional theocracy. And in many ways, that is what Israel is. It doesn't have a constitution, but it is a theocracy. The Haredi Jewish population is nearly 50%. The left wing has died in the Knesset. It's just not even there anymore. So it's right. It's hard right. It's harder right, and so you have a court system there. It's supposed to be separate, but more or less Bibi's, Netanyahu's reforms have more or less brought it in line with the ideology of the Knesset. And but nevertheless, it is a secular court that judges theological applications to civic life. So all of this is 100% theopolitical that's going on. Even the United States, there are theorists who think the United States is a soft, what's called a soft theocracy, where especially with our Supreme Court that uses natural law, the conservative majority, they appeal often to kind of natural law forms of thinking that resist the liberal progressivism that dominates the three leftist judges, and natural law is seen as an expression, particularly of Catholic theology. So, in a sense, we're being ruled. These are what scholars are arguing, ruled by a soft theocratic sentiment, as well as just the strong, very strong, Christian Zionist sentiments here among dispensationalists and the like. So, yeah, I think this is a very, very theological conflict. So, in my book on the civcosm, civilizational cosmocracy, the opening intro, forward or whatever, is all about this war. And it's about the theopolitical dimension. Remember, a civcosm is made of theopolitics, technopolitics, and astropolitics. So the theopolitical aspect of this conflict is front and center in my study of it. So yeah, definitely. Thrawn, if the VRA is overturned, Virginia loses, and Florida redistricts, how many seats will the GOP have before the midterm? I had a count on the. It depends what your baseline is, and that's hard. It depends what your baseline is. So you could do a baseline based on, say, like Cook Political Report of what they predict Republicans are going to get. I think they've got the Republicans like at 2010 right now, or 210 or 212 or something like that. So you could go there. So say you go 212, Florida redistricts. So that's 216. So we'd have to win 2. But if you go with the 218, but again, you go with the 218 because you said that Virginia loses. Oh, and then you have the VRA overturned. Sorry, for some reason I missed that. I think it's around 230 if you get that, because I think a conservative number is 212. I'm sorry, I'm getting all my numbers mixed up. Conservative number for how many seats we'd pick up, VRA's overturned, is 12. Politico has it at 19, but Seth Keshel has it more at 12. And Seth is, Seth proves his worth every election. He's pretty amazing in terms of how he can project. So he sees it as 12. So then the question is, 12 and then 4 more, so that's 16. So where's your baseline? That's your question. Is your baseline at 210? Right? Well, if there's 16 there, that's what, 226? But if your baseline's lower, we can get around the, back under 218. So it's just bottom line, it's where's your baseline. no matter what, and this is key, no matter what, there's a very low ceiling for everybody. We're not going very far above like a, 226 or something like that, or a 230. We're just not, that's just, no one's going to get much more above that. It's the level of gerrymandering that's happened now is pretty much made 90+% of the seats a foregone conclusion. It's baked into the cake, which is not good. Let's be honest. Look, if we're playing power politics, we got to do it. There's no question about it. But it's not good, because then in the end, parties are picking their constituents rather than the other way around, right? But regardless, if you've got to fight a war against the Democrats, you might as well do it. So I think with the 16 picked up seats, again, I'm assuming 4 from Florida, 12 from VRA. We may be around 220, 220. So it depends on your baseline. And I'd have to look at the latest from the Cook political report. I thought they had 2010. I keep doing that. 210 as the Republicans right now, pretty much guaranteed. So we just need 8 seats in the end. And VRA overturn and Florida redistricting should do it. Now, kid, you got the Virginia. If Virginia wins, we have to scrape another 4 seats off of that. So it goes down to 206. But regardless, William O2, do you think arrests will come in mass or drips and drabs because the nation demands it? Yeah, well, Trump apparently, right before I got on air, I saw the tweet. Trump said arrests are coming. I wanted to take a look at that. I'm like, oh, that would have been a good talk. I mean, I like talking about pretty much everything that's going on in the world, because it's all working in our direction anyway. So I think drips or drabs. I'm inclined to think it's drips or drabs, only because of just the nature of the Justice Department and assembling the cases. Even Trump's indictments came in drips and drabs. If I'm reading you rightly, if I'm getting what you said, first it was the Mar-a-Lago raid, and then you had Manhattan, and the Fat Alvin Bragg case against him. Then you had the DC cases, then you had Fulton. So they kind of came back to back to back, but it was, if I'm getting, you're right, that's more drips and drabs as opposed to just one big mass arrest. I would assume it's going to be that way, just given a precedent, but I would love mass arrest. Either way, we've got to have some people brought to justice. No question about that. Savage, Doctor, if you are POTUS, do you take the oil, or if you were POTUS, do you take the oil? Do you have them supply us to? Do you just take it, or do you have? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I would assume Trump will always dangle carrots, and he will always start with, "Hey, you supply us," very similar to like we see with Venezuela. You supply us with oil, you're going to make more money than you ever dreamed. You've been selling your oil at a radical discount because you're sanctioned, because, other states have you in a bind. They don't need to buy from you. You provide them a service by you giving them, I do plural there. You provide China a service by giving it low prices, but they're providing you a service by buying it, right? So we'll tell you what, we'll integrate you into the GCC market and into the U.S. Venezuela market, and you will have more money than you know what to do with. And then we get a percentage, we get a kickback on that. I see that. I see Trump as them supplying us, as it were, rather than just taking the oil. But again, escalation ladder. They don't play ball, then the stick comes, and then we just take the oil. And we've already been doing it when we seize the tankers. We take the oil. We're not returning the oil. We're taking the oil. Deborah, why is it okay for, is it Texas and Florida to cut out more GOP seats, but not for Virginia? Okay, so that's a legit question. And I think there's two overall answers. Well, there's three overall answers for it. So the question is, really, how do you want to answer that? Are you dealing with a skeptic? Well, you can answer it to a skeptic this way as well. Let's see. I'm just making a note to myself. So Texas and Florida are both Republican plus 14 states. The last time they did redistricting, like, for example, Florida, they were a Republican plus 2. So their breakdown in their districts reflects a near even state. But that's not Florida anymore. If anything, they're a Republican plus 18 now. I mean, I think they've gotten redder than Texas. And again, this is in a legit election. This is in like a presidential election. That's how you determine, not some off-year election or anything like that. So in a presidential election, they're plus 13, plus 14. And so the redistricting is there to reflect that ratio. Whereas Virginia is a plus 5 Democrat state. And they're a plus 5 Democrat state redistricting as if they were a plus 30 Democrat state with only one Republican seat. So even Florida would still have like 3 Democrat seats. Texas still has 3 or 4 for whatever Democrat seats. They're single digits in big states, but there's still at least some semblance of proportionality. Whereas the only reason why Florida chose those 4 is to try to dilute what had happened with Texas, and Texas, and in fairness, Missouri, and a couple of other states that have that had Ohio's supposed to add in it too, and so on. So that's number one. Number two, Texas and Florida are doing it in accordance with their constitution, whereas Virginia is doing it against their constitution. So a few years ago, they had a referendum that passed overwhelmingly, where Virginians approved a nonpartisan redistricting committee setting up the districts. To be fair, this referendum overturns that, in effect. It replaces that. So it's changing its constitution. Now, in order to change the constitution in Virginia, you have to pass the measure through one legislative session. Then, as a way of checks and balances, you have to have an election. There has to be some kind of statewide election where the House of Delegates are up for re-election, and then you have to pass it again after the election. So, say they passed a referendum in October, had the election, and then that new House of Delegates passes that same referendum measure again in, say, January. Then you can have it. That's not what they did. They just did it like in January, and that's it. They did not follow the rules. Plus the wording on the referendum was completely biased towards its passage. They talked about, do you want to change our, I'm just paraphrasing, our districting, our congressional district proportion to be more fair, or not? You can ask that. No, I don't want it to be more fair. You see, that's a biased question. Whereas Texas was very simple. Do you support adding 5 new seats in solid red counties? Yes or no? Yeah, I do. I support that. Absolutely. So they are completely disproportionate in terms of their representations based on their electoral makeup. They're only plus 5 Democrat, whereas at least Texas and Florida are plus double digits Republican. At least they're that. And then secondly, they did it illegally, and that's why it's probably going to get struck down by the Virginia Supreme Court. So that's the technical side of things of why it's okay for Texas and Florida to do it, but not Virginia. Texas and Florida obeyed the law and drew a map that still reflected the proportionality of the partisan breakdown of their states. But there is, Deborah, there is a third answer to it. And it's a real one. It's because when Texas and Florida does it, the good guys do it. And when Virginia does it, the bad guys do it. Politics is, this goes back to Carl Schmitt, goes even earlier. Another theorist, politics is about power. Politics isn't about fairness, as we're finding out in Virginia. Politics isn't about fairness. Fairness might be useful for persuasive purposes in political rhetoric, but politics is about power. And bottom line, our guys, our friend, our political allies in Texas and Florida can have all the red seats they want, and we're going to do everything we can to stop the bad guys, our enemies in Virginia, from even getting so much as one more Democrat seat. It's okay for Texas and Florida to do it because they're the good guys. This is politics. They're on our side. They're the good guys. We root for them. This is what I despise with the podcast panicans, with the doomers, is how disloyal they are to a side. You're on a side. We're fighting a war. And you want ideological purity. I don't buy that, by the way. The SPLC writing checks behind the scenes makes me really question your motivations here. But they are so quick. This is why I despise libertarians. I have no use for the beautiful losers of libertarianism. They are the first ones to jump off the bandwagon because you violated our principles. Your principles mean jack shit if you have no power. Power is politics. Power is politics. And our side got 5 seats in Texas, probably 4 seats in Florida. Our side got 9 more seats, and their side looks like they're going to get shot down with the 4 seats they tried to get. Good. See, I don't need to go into the minutia. I will, because I'm your Patriot professor. I will, and I think that's another level of persuasion for others. Well, wait a minute. We at least have extraordinary, disproportionate partisan pairing here, and we did it legally. They didn't. We did. Texas and Florida did within their constitutional bounds, whereas Virginia flagrantly violated their constitutional norms. But let's be honest. It's okay to say because Texas and Florida are the good guys and Virginia's the bad guy. Bad guys should not gain anything. Evil should not gain. Well, but what if they say, well, yes, of course they are. This is what I despise about people who say, well, we can't get rid of the filibuster because what if they do? They are going to. They're evil. That's what evil people do. So you gotta take them out first. And then, but then don't you become that? No, because because we honestly I get it. We honestly believe that we are preserving our nation. They honestly believe they're destroying it, and they're happy about it. We are pro-America. They are post-America. And it's that simple. Pro-American, Texas and Florida, pro-American seats are gaining. And what we're trying to do is make sure that post-American seats, the anti-American seats of that white witch Spamberger and what she's and her antics, that they go down in defeat. Pure and simple. That's it. So there you go. Jeff Witt, I'm not sure, but was there a survey poll released a month or two ago where it asked people's opinion on Trump? Then the pollster listed things that he had done. Then the pollster re-asked the person's opinion, and it increased. Good question. That's a very good question because again, that reveals the reveals the limitations of polling, right? And that's also where you get response bias. Like, so if it's not a really good time for the Republicans, but it's a great time for Democrats, all of a sudden all the polls explode because Democrats can't wait to answer. And it works the other way around. I'm sure there has been. I don't know which one specifically you're pointing to, but I'm sure there has been. Absolutely, yeah. Again, that would be a more accurate poll. You take it first, and then say, well, but he's done this, he's done that. Yeah, that's true. And then you see it go up a bit. Those are the true believers. So, but they may not be informed because most people, they're not like us. We're political junkies. We're diehards. We love this stuff. And we love civilization. We love saving civilization. And most people are just trying to get on with their lives, and God bless them. God bless them for it. So they don't know necessarily what's going on. Miami, cuz I saw that you speak a lot about Republican voter registration increasing within the last couple of years, but independent registers also increase. Are most independents rightly? Great question. So what we're seeing with independents is a move away from Democrats. So that's key. So we're seeing Democrats, the pattern that we've been seeing since 2020, generally, okay, it's general. You'll see individual moments, individual weeks here or there, especially before primary. Democrats will get a surge in votes, but then it'll level off. But generally what we're seeing is Democrats are going down and both Republicans and independents are going up. So the key sign is to see the parity move between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats have lost what it was at 2.1 million. Republicans have gained 2.4 million. So it's a 4.5 million swing over to the Republicans. Great. But what about independents? Independents are growing faster than Republicans in many cases. What we're seeing, as long as we're seeing the Democrats shrink, what then the pattern is that the independents are coming out of the Democrats. They're not becoming Republicans, but they've repudiated the Democrats. They've had it with the Democrats. And that's a good sign, because that's usually the step before they eventually become a Republican. In other words, they're more likely to vote right if they've left the Democrats than they are to vote with the Democrats. Because why would you leave a party that you vote with? Why would you leave a party that you vote with? If you left the party, you're more inclined to vote for the other party, even though you haven't aligned yourself with that. So it's not that we have data that, because every independents in each state are different. So it's not like we've got overall data that shows that independents, generally speaking, move in one way or the other. The pattern we've been seeing from 2020 is, as long as Democrats are shrinking, that means that independents are coming out of the Democratic Party. They're renouncing the Democratic Party. They're not ready to jump all the way and become Republicans, but they are less likely to vote Democrat than they've ever been. So that's sort of the pattern. And then it usually is the step they have to take before they become Republican. James, never let a crisis go to waste. Democrats use other people's money to create a crisis. SPLC is the same old of the Democrat playbook. Brilliantly put. Absolutely brilliantly put. I love that. I think you're 1,000% correct. I think they got caught red-handed. I think we have always said that things like J6 and Charlottesville were ops. We always knew they were. We always knew they were manufactured and coordinated. And let's be perfectly fair. Our side lets them do it pretty easily, don't we? We're sure gullible. We sure fall victim for it. I could tell you, we were invited to a J6 rally. I was invited to speak, and we turned it down because we didn't like the vibes. We did not like the vibes. It's hard to be able to pin down exactly what, but we just felt there was something not right about it. And so now looking back, that's probably some spiritual discernment. Looking back, obviously we knew, because there were some pretty nefarious actors behind this stuff. So anyway, you're absolutely right. In the SPL, no one gets more nefarious than the SPLC. It's really interesting because we've done some videos on them in the past over the last, this is our 10th year now. And there have been, like, I can't remember. I think it was like the New Yorker magazine. There's like totally like cosmopolitan legacy media outlets who have openly called out the SPLC for being a racket. Because so many liberals, ideologically progressive people, have been burned by them inside the organization. They've left, and they've taken their grievance, as it were, to these cosmopolitan legacy media outlets like the New Yorker. And they said, the place is just about money. That's it. All they care about. They don't care about civil rights or anything. They laugh at that stuff. All of that is just a veneer, a cloak, to shake people down and make money. Because in the end, they basically looked at right-wing politicians and say, look, we're either going to publish this piece and destroy your reputation, or you can send us a donation for 20 grand. They literally did shit like that. I mean, they were just a disgusting organization. So for one, I'm very, very glad to see they're going. But I think they're the tip of the iceberg. I do. And again, you had all these shell organizations that they were paying out to right-wing groups, so they did not know it was SPLC. But it'll be very interesting to see once they're out of the picture. It'd be very interesting to see how many in our podcast world we're getting checks from them. You'll find out real quick, because either their tune changes or they'll just drop out. So, Gary, Dr. C, what's your opinion on the end game of all this? There's so much disinformation going around and divide. Thank you. Are you talking about if you're talking about the my chair here, if you're talking about the war in Iran, I think the end game, bottom line, is the regime falls. We don't know when. We don't know how eventually. But the regime does fall, because the only three options that Trump has got them into, this is why the theater is so brilliant, and everyone telling you, Iran's winning. I mean, it's just the level of virtual reality that you have to descend into to even possibly think that way. Is to even imagine a counterfactual like that is so insane. But the bottom line is they could surrender, they could continue to fight, or they could try to wait this out. Either way, all three options have the same conclusion. The regime falls. It falls with the first one, where they surrender because their legitimizing ideology has just been thoroughly discredited. It's already been discredited as far as the people concerned. We have polls on that, or surveys on that. Most people don't believe it. They don't buy the idea that they've been ordained by God to destroy Israel and humiliate America. They don't believe that anymore. Most Iranians want to be pro-America, and they want to align with the Sunni Arab states and enjoy a prosperous future. That's what most of them want. Again, that's Trump's thinking. Hey, let's make Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East. Hey, Venezuela, I'm going to get rid of this idiot that is leading you down the wrong path. Work with us. You'll be richer than you ever dreamed. Hey, Cuba, guess what? You know what? You finally met an American administration wants to do business with you. Why don't we just make your island the richest island in the Caribbean? Let's do that. That's the way Trump, the entrepreneur, thinks. And most people in the world, thank God, do. So the regime is gone if the first option happens. And then you've got, you've got the escalation ladder that's going to kick in with the second option. If they start resuming hostilities with us with whatever limited capacity they have, because they can't project power anymore, well, then we just start taking out all the infrastructure, just like Clinton did during the 70 days of bombing in Serbia. So they know that's going to be a disaster. And then eventually the idea is that people will have enough, and the regime, so much of the top will have been killed off and assassinated in these strikes, especially with Mossad intelligence, as well as our satellite capability that is able to track with them wherever they are around Iran. And then third, wait it out. They're being economically strangled. And so eventually the economy just implodes. So there's just nothing they can do. And so once that happens, then Iran, having been completely defanged, will be assimilated in some way, shape, or form. They'll have no choice into the larger GCC architecture, the Gulf uh, um, country corporate cooperation structure that's there, that is already intertwined with the Abraham Accords. And again, at the very least, they're going to be a placid country that's no longer going to be able to maintain its proxy. Hezbollah, I think, will be removed. They'll be gone. Houthis will just, they'll lick their wounds and they'll just do their thing. And again, they've seen what can happen to them if Iran and if Israel and the United States and Gulf. And again, this is what Trump wants. If Israel and the Gulf countries come together, Houthis would be, blown to smithereens. So in the end, I think you're going to have a Middle East that will finally have the architecture it needs. The Abraham Accords architecture, brokered by the United States, for true peace and prosperity in the region. China will be boxed out, no longer be a proxy to Iran. Limitations for their relationship will again be baked into the cake of this cooperation, because whatever Iran is doing with China is going to have to be okayed with the other partners, including America, because America's the one who's brokering this arrangement. And then we're going to be able to move our forces out of the region, maybe not completely, but significantly, and leave the regional governance to the civilizational sphere that is there, that is geographically situated there. And then that oil and energy production will be thoroughly aligned with our Gulf of America production, or Alaska production, and then we'll tacitly control about 60%, either explicitly or tacitly control about 60% of the world's energy. There'll be more money coming into the United States than anything we ever imagined possible. A peaceful, prosperous Middle East, and a networked multipolarity from the Western Hemisphere through NATO, Europe, or whatever comes afterward, whether it's two-tier NATO or the coalition of the willing, whatever comes through there, through the Abraham Accords, then through what's called the I2U2, that's Israel to India, that's the two I's, and then United Arab Emirates and the United States, the two U's, the I2U2 coalition that combines Israeli and Indian technology with United Arab Emirates money and with United States security guarantees, which will go over to the Abraham Accords, and then that links into the India derived Quad, which is United States, India, Australia, and Japan, which now Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore are all part of, with us now more or less controlling the Strait of Malacca, where 80% of China's trade goes through. So that is the civilizational world order that will emerge from this, with the United States at the center. And that, for Trump, is what will make America great again like never before, quite literally, for lack of a better term. Stephanie, hey, Dr. Steve, do you think the CCP or some organization like the SPLC are paying mainstream media? If so, could the MSM be held accountable for how much damage they've done in some way? Oh, I'm sure they're getting money. I'm sure. I mean, the SPLC was just, it was treated like, it was treated sacrosanct, whatever it said. And whoever it branded as racist was taken as, I mean, it's grade A inspection kind of thing. It was non-negotiable. It was never contested, and it destroyed careers. I don't know what the CCP don't know where the CCP falls. I mean, the CCP has a vested interest in getting us to fight each other. So the CCP is pushing cultural Marxism big time. But what makes the SPLC so interesting is they were pushing so-called far right, neo-Nazi, whatever, KKK stuff, which fueled the cultural Marxist sense that this white supremacy is the big problem. So it's all seems intertwined, and it would be. I would love to see an investigation behind the legacy media. They've never been more unpopular. They've never been so ill supported. And I just say, yeah, it'd be a perfect time to really say, yeah, you know what, we're gonna sue you, and then we're gonna have through discovery, we're gonna go through all your emails, we're gonna go through all your texts. Just do what the Dominion lawsuit did with Fox News when we found out that Tucker actually hated Trump back in 2020. Tucker said it explicitly. The text said he despised Trump, and he thought the whole idea of the election being stolen was ridiculous. I mean, he said, now again, whether it was CYAing or whatever, that's anyone's guess, but at least we got to see it. So I'd like to see that. I don't know what the consequences would be, but it would certainly be embarrassment. That's at the very least. August 10th. Thoughts on the growing number of blue states wanting to count the popular vote only and ignore the Electoral College in future presidential elections. Best regards. Yeah, I think, believe it or not, I think it is the biggest mistake they could possibly make, because it's assuming that the popular vote, and it was a right assumption until Trump came along, it's assuming that the popular vote will always go Democrat. And that's because of the cosmopolitan, the population dense centers of your coastal cosmopolitan cities of, LA and San Francisco and New York and Chicago and Boston and so on. So it made sense because they thought that they could pressure red states or purple states to do just that. But Trump showed in 2024 that when you bring out the low prop to no prop voter, they're more inclined to vote for the populist candidate. And as long as the Republican Party stays populist, like i.e. J.D. Vance, then the popular vote should continue to go in our direction, especially as more and more of the nation's population moves to red states, and red states continue to increase in their population while blue states decrease. So I think it's going to be, ironically, it would be a huge setback for them. Texas, and La Shock. Hello, Dr. Megadittos, as they'd say on Russia. So God bless Rush. I'm curious, do you think if Trump had become a governor or senator, cabinet or VP, and then become president, would there be as much of this vehement, irrational hatred? What a great hypothetical. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That's a very good question. So the question assumes that because Trump is the first non-politician / non-military figure, like General Washington, for example, to become president, just came out of nowhere, that he has disrupted, as it were, the apple cart. He's disrupted the rules as the regime led by the legacy media has created them. And that is kind of the source of the TDS. Yeah, I can't even imagine Trump as a governor. I can't even imagine him as a senator. He's just too big. His aura is too big. I would assume if he came up traditionally, there would be less. I think you're on to something. I think there would be less TDS and irrational hatred. The irrational hatred is originally, right, it was Putin that bought. There was no way he could have won. It was Putin who bought the election, rigged the election in 2016. And then this time around, they didn't have that excuse anymore. And now they've kind of gone back to their original TDSs. The glory of that win, that amazing win has worn off. But that's the best I can give you on terms of an answer. I think, yes, I think you're right. It wouldn't be as bad, but I think it'd still be pretty bad. They were horrible to George Bush. They were calling Mitt Romney a Nazi. They're sick people. Tangiers, if traditionalism succeeds, we'll see a decline in premillennialism as American Christians gain confidence and optimism. Oh, will we see a decline in premillennialism as American Christians gain confidence and optimism? That's an excellent question. That's a really sophisticated question. So if you guys don't know, premillennialism is the idea that the Christian millennium, the reign of Christ, comes only after he returns. But he has to return because of the Antichrist rising up and trying to destroy his church. There is a premillennial view, like in the Orthodox Church, where the church is incredibly successful, very, like, for lack of a better term, like post-millennial. It's incredibly successful. And then the Antichrist takes over that success. That's an interesting kind of blend, right? So by definition of that, I'd have to say, no, it's not necessarily baked into the cake. A true millennium, like an actual Christ reigning 1,000 years on earth and having to return first, as opposed to a spiritual millennium, can still be connected to a very optimistic eschatology, provided that it's the Antichrist that takes over all the grand, glorious work that the church has done. That is, if I understand it, that is Bulgakov's eschatology, a Russian Orthodox theologian, brilliant theologian in the 20th century, because he was very influenced by Nikolai, why am I forgetting, Fyodorov. And Fyodorov believed that because of the resurrection of Christ, the very matter of the universe, the technology of the universe, has been revivified through the Holy Spirit, through the work of believers, so as to be able to create a tech trad, science, religion-based world, a literally archeo-future world, where we can go and terraform all the planets all over the universe into a great harmonious galactic expression of Christian dominion. How's that? And he's writing in the 19th century. Dostoevsky and who else? Solovyov and a number, Tolstoy, of course, they were blown away by this guy. He was a librarian. He never married. He lived alone. Fyodorov, you might want to check him out, Nikolai Fyodorov. And Bulgakov was a big fan of Fyodorov, and he saw that. So this is extremely post-millennial. And then at the end, the Antichrist takes it over. So we built the whole structure for the Antichrist to take over. So you can have both. You can have both. But in America, obviously most Americans don't have this mind-blowing kind of Russian eschatology. But yeah, it's a good question. I could see it because it just, I think, let me back up. I think Christian Zionism is baked into the cake of Americanity. Okay, I this is coming as an Orthodox Christian. I'm not a Christian Zionist in that sense. I think dispensationalism, the idea that Israel has a very special place in God's historical redemptive activities, that he's going to, that the covenant he made with them will not end, and that it has not ended, and it's going to play out again. I just think it's just baked into the cake of things. It's baked into the cake of American Protestant theology. It's just so embedded. Can it be, what's the question? Can we see it in decline? Because premillennialism is a necessary part of that, as I understand it. Can we see it decline? I'm sure we could see a decline in it. I'm sure we can, but there'll there's always a way, like even what you say with traditionalism succeeding, there's always a way of saying, oh, but that's just cultural Christianity. That's not real Christianity. Or, there's always a way around it. I personally think like Tucker has been at war with dispensational theology. And to me, it's just like, I don't know. It's like trying to move a wall. What's the point? It's like being at war with Mormon theology. Mormon LDS theology is part of like American frontier mythology. It's just like the most American belief system you can come up with in a sense, I'm not endorsing it, or I'm just saying, you're not going to get rid of it. You're not going to make Utah less more. If anything, it's getting more Mormon. Mormonism is spreading because they're having kids. So, into Idaho and New Mexico and all that. So Wyoming. So I just think in the end, traditionalism is going to continue to succeed because religion itself, the growth of religion is baked into the cake of demographics. Religious people are having kids and secularists are not. And I just think I think dispensationalists are going to produce more dispensationalists. I do. Premillennialists are going to produce more premillennials. There'll be, I think the more traditionalists we are, there'll be more options on the table for premillennialists to consider. But as long as they're having kids and babies, for every one premillennialist they lose, they're having 2 or 3 more in the crib. So, because I do tend to see, religion as heritable. There's studies that show that religion is passed down from parent to child, even if the kids kind of leave it for a while, whatever, they eventually come back. Or even if they don't fully come back, they're still very, very influenced by it. So there you go. Hi, Q, watching the California debate. I've come to the conclusion, give the left what they want and make sure they don't run away from the consequences. I like that, Hi, Q. I like that a lot. Yeah, they're insane. They're absolutely nuts at this point. There's no other way of putting it. These people are psychopaths. Gary B. Jones, Dr. C, what's your opinion on the end game to all this? There's so much. Yeah, we already did that one. Movie Ronic query: does Paxton has too much baggage to win? That's one of the concerns. But no, he can win. He'll have no problem. In a Republican plus 14 state, they've done studies that they've looked back at. When have states where the presidential candidate, Republican presidential candidate, won by, say, like double digits, 14 points, 12 points, whatever. When have those states switch in the next senatorial election, switch and voted in a Democrat? It's like once or twice over the last 20 years. We had Alabama with Doug Jones. Was that in 2017? With a particularly weak candidate, Roy Moore. He was weakened by the establishment. The establishment wanted to take him out. But of course, that was a special election to replace what's his name, who's the attorney general. So became attorney general under Trump for his first term. So it was a special election, not an actual like midterm or presidential election. So no, we should be fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Now, if you mean to win the primary, that's yet to be seen. We'll have to see how that works out. It does look like Paxton's going to probably win. Oh, thank you very much. Warm Cool, I believe. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Very kind of you. Croat Patriot USA. Wonderful. Zagreb. Do you know what is being done about the last minute ballot drop that occurred in the Virginia redistricting election? I'm under the impression this is why the Democrats won. Their cheating needs to stop. No, well, that is definitely how the Democrats won. They won through mail-in ballots. Democrats have perfected this. This is what we've got to get. It's not about polls. Even just that last question, does Paxton have too much baggage? No, it's got nothing to do with issues. It's got nothing to do with baggage. It's got nothing to do with character. now, of course, you got to be a viable candidate, but bottom line, it comes down to get out the vote operation, the Go TV, as they say, and get out the vote. The Democrats have mastered the get out the vote element of mail-in ballots, and as I understand it, like the mail-in ballot count in Virginia was like 8-1 Democrat, something like that. I forget. 8-1 Democrat. It had the yes had won by a margin of 40, and I forgot what percentage of the get out the vote was made up the overall electorate, but it was significant enough for that 40-point yes margin to make up that just barely less than 3% win. So, I mean, again, they voted right to even the 2024 electorate when Trump got a record number against Kamala, losing only by 5 points. So bottom line, the mail-in ballots are the reason why they won. And we have got to get control over that. And the SAVE Act is fine, but do not lose sight. And it's more than fine, it's necessary. But do not lose sight of the fact that either we got to ban mail-in ballots, for the exception of people who are infirm or who qualify. We either got to ban mail-in ballots across the country, or we got to master it. It's one or the other. So Cliff Maloney of Pennsylvania Chase, we've had him on a number of times. He's a master at ballot harvesting in Pennsylvania. We've got to do the same thing in Virginia. Brian Eaton, Venezuela and Panama Canal are the first steps to the grand plan, with them gone China and no backup supply of oil. You got it. You got it, Brian. I mean, China right now is already buying $10 billion a month of oil from the United States. And I believe Venezuela is part of that as well. Venezuela is already rocking and rolling with their oil supplies. And of course, we get a kickback in all of that. So you got it. It's the shield of the Americas. It is the Don Road doctrine, where the Western Hemisphere belongs to America in full, and then we link up to the rest of the world all the way to the Pacific via Greenland to Europe, some kind of NATO alliance, whatever it's going to be, through the Abraham Accords, through the I-2U2 that hooks up Israel to India, and then from the Quad, India, all the way through Australia, up to Japan. So it's a Quad America, India, Australia, and Japan. But then now with the new military strategic treaties that we've just signed, agreements that we just signed with Indonesia, Malaysia's been moving in our direction overwhelmingly, and Singapore's an ally. We're controlling literally an entire portion of the planet through this networked multipolarity, where all the different civilizations run their sphere, but it all comes economically and militaristically, as it were, through guarantees provided by the United States. And so that we become officially the shining city on a hill. I mean, we are the center of the world for the foreseeable future. And as a result, petrodollars permanently in play now or it's a permanent fixture of the global economy. And people ask, well, how are we multipolar? You're still multipolar in other ways, but not through fuel, not through energy. Energy, it's pretty much dominated by the United States at this point. Richard, the United States is supplementing Middle Eastern oil. Why is there an issue with the price of oil? The Strait shutting down now shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I wish it did. So if you and I went into oil investment, we'd be in oil investment because it's one of the way it's an investment that's priced globally. Now it comes with risks, because if you have a shutdown in Hormuz, all of a sudden the demand and supply get messed up. The demand way outweighs the supply, just because choke points and it takes longer and so forth. And so it doesn't matter how much oil we have. The oil is priced globally. Now, the advantage is you may live in a crappy country and there's no domestic investments, but you can invest in oil because whatever the price of oil transcends whatever's going on in the economy of your country. So it's both its promise and its curse, is that oil is priced for investors. Remember, investors help with the pricing, as it were. They're the ones providing the digging technology and the drilling, I guess I should say, technology, and the mass production and so forth, and then the refineries, and they're the ones who take the risk. And then you have the Lloyds of London and the underwriters. So it's a whole industry, and it is a private industry. Yes, you'll have some public, like Venezuela and so forth, but generally the industry itself is private, and investors get into it with certain risks and rewards in place. And those risks and rewards revolve around a globally priced commodity. And so it doesn't matter how much money we have or how much oil we have. Karen, your show is required watching. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Very, very appreciated. Thank you very much. Kathy, Dr. C, what's your opinion on Russia, who's been a support system for Iran and IRGC? China on the ropes. No one's talking about Russia. Your take, please. Great question, Kathy. Yeah, Russia's just too Russia is too bogged down in Ukraine, and it has no parallel proxy in the form of Syria. So the Assad regime in Syria was a very close ally with Putin, and Russian troops helped push back the rebels, as it were, in the civil war. And then when Syria collapsed, Russia just didn't. I mean, the GCC countries, these are all the Gulf Sunni Arab countries, they're all pro-Western. You might have like Oman and Qatar, so you kind of say, hey, we're neutral here, but they're certainly not pro-Russia per se. All you had at that point was Iran. And then when Iran started getting zinged, there was really nothing they could do in response, because so much of their military and so much of their budget is caught up in Ukrainian theater. So Russia's really not. I've heard they share some intelligence and so forth. That's to be expected, but to really no end. Teat Streets, thanks for breaking down what's going on. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Stephen. Very kind of you. And your thoughts on California governor's race debate was interesting. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But right now, I mean, California's. I mean, the Democrat Party in California are psychopaths. I mean, they're literally the psychopathy knows no bounds. We'll see how the jungle primary works out. William, I'll just stay with him. Dr. Steve, Turkey threatened to invade Israel. Hey, I thought you got my name wrong. Dr. Steve, Turkey threatened they would invade Israel. Do you know, I just as an aside, I hate spelling correction. It doesn't do it anymore, but spelling correction, people would always say, Dr. Turkey, do you know? I got to ask, if I ever meet Jonathan Turley, I got to ask him how much it gets called Turkey. Dr. Z, Turkey threatened they would invade Israel. How do you think NATO will respond if they do? Nah, it's nothing. Don't pay no attention to that. That's just noise. There's nothing to that at all. They're not going to invade Israel even remotely. Music and fiction. We have Panama, Gibraltar, Hormuz, and Malacca. I guess it's Malacca. America holds the keys to all the major choke points. We are the captain now. So music and fiction, you win. I think today you win the Geopolitics Award for astute observations. You got it. I don't know if I got that one. Yeah, I did. Hey, maybe you've been watching. I did cover it. I thought it was in a video earlier this week. But absolutely, you got it. Panama, Gibraltar now with Morocco, Hormuz, Malacca with Indonesia. You got it. There's like 6 major choke points. There's a map I showed earlier this week, and you can look it up if you look like the map of the major choke points, and then there's some minor choke points as well. I think there's about a dozen altogether, and then one of them involves Turkey, so it's a NATO member, so we don't worry about that so much. But you got it. We control all the choke points. And so if there's ever a major issue that goes on in the world, we can shut things down real quick. We get to shut things down. We get to control. We hold the lever, not someone else. So leverage is always having something somebody else wants. And everyone would love to have control of at least one choke point. But to have control of 4 of the major choke points and then tacit control of the other 2 or 3, unbelievable. So you got it. That's exactly. And notice in his first week as president, who was he confronting? And you caught it right there. First week as president, first few days, who was he confronting? Panama. He went into this knowing exactly what he was going to do. They've been preparing for this for years. John, keep the oil in West Hemisphere. It owned PRC. And I think, yes, we keep the oil in the Western Hemisphere. Absolutely. We are open for business. That's why he's renamed it the Gulf of America, because it is the center of the world for energy export. We are the #1 energy exporter in the world right now. It's stunning. I mean, what's happened with the turnaround since the auto pen years. And that's it. All right, guys, I love you so much. Keep an eye on the channel, because I will be your back porch professor over the weekend. Any developments coming up, you're going to get breaking news and analysis here that you won't get anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.